Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Awards Buzz. I'm Abe Friedtanzer,
I'm Stacey Yvonne.
I'm Sari Cohen.
and we are here talking about the Screen Actors Guild Film Awards, the nominations that we are expecting. This one is closest from what we've seen so far to the Oscars in terms of like overlap of membership. It's not just critics groups and other people, so we might get some different choices. There are five categories in addition to the stunt ensemble, which we're not going to predict. Um, the first one, a male actor in a leading role, actually went 5 for 5 with Oscar last year and in 2021 and 2020, which is really sort of unusual to have that happen. But this category, apparently, it's not. Some interesting nominees that I noticed in looking back at the list from years past, because this existed since 1994. We had Adam Sandler for Hustle, Robert Duvall for Get Low, Peter Dinklage, The Station Agent, Kevin Kline, Life as a House, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Flawless, and in addition to Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins for The Shawshank Redemption. Stacey, where do you think we are with this category?
I think it's going to be pretty typical, actually. I think we have a good roster of films, and I think we have a tight selection of kind of what people like. I think that Ray Fiennes for Conclave is going to get in there. I do think that Timothy Chalamet is going to get in there. Possibly Edward Norton. I have him on my maybe kind of list. Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. And I in that vein, I also think we're gonna get Adrian Brody for The Brutalist. I don't fully know how I feel about kind of Sebastian Stan's chances. I think that if anything, it might split, but I actually think we're going to get to some categories where I think The Apprentice is going to fare a little bit better. Um, and there was one in particular that I was really excited about, and I'm blanking on it. But oh, I would like to see John David Washington in the piano lesson. I think that it's not getting a lot of love, but I think enough people are excited about the Washingtons that, it might just eke in there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think the top five, I've got Ray Fiennes, Timothy Chalamet, Coleman Domingo, Adrian Brody, and Sebastian Stan. My feeling for this, well, same thing I said about TV. It's like actors are going to, I think, vote generally on like an actor's body of work. I think Adrian Brody is going to get a lot of nods this award season total. But this is a category that I can actually see him taking. I think the brutalist. I think he could potentially win this one.
I think to have any of the like first four nominees, Coleman, Ray, Timothy, or sorry, is it Coleman twice? Or Adrian not nominated would be pretty shocking. I think the expected fifth Oscar nominee is Daniel Craig for Queer. And I think it's unfortunate because he really doesn't have any support for the film overall. Like anybody who likes Luca Guadagnino is going towards challengers instead. And so it's hard to do that. That said, Daniel Craig has been working for a while and Queer is something so different. And so I do
Mhm.
think that people will respect that. I want to predict Sebastian Stan, but I don't know for which movie. And I think I will not be the only one having that problem because,
Right.
in a sense, A Different Man is the more challenging performance, but also it's the less relatable film. Like, I don't know what to say about that. And so I think Daniel Craig is a safer choice in that sense because, again, for someone to do something so different, it just feels worthwhile. And so that way, I'm not expecting a surprise in this category. I think this is a lot less competitive in some ways. That also could pave the way for someone to get in who we're just not expecting at all.
I,
I also want to, oh, just real quick, I want to give a shout out for Andre Holland. I wasn't a huge fan of that movie, but I loved his performance in it. And it's also by Roadside Attractions, who also did The Last Showgirl. And so I think having a more indie kind of studio in there could help. So it could be like, fun little surprise.
Yeah. It's what you're saying, Abe. I think Sebastian Stan would be in for The Apprentice. I also think, I mean, it would be a massive year if Daniel Craig gets in for A24.
Mm,
I mean, that's like queer. Sing Sing and The Brutalist for A24. Not to Andrew Garfield, also We Live in Time was A24, and he's certainly a potential for a nomination. So, I mean, that would be wild. That would be that would be some year for A24.
I think if anybody could do it, it'd be A24. I also think if we
Honestly.
got Andre Holland and John David Washington, I'd be thrilled. I think they both have absolutely zero chance, which is very sad. That said, John David Washington was nominated for Black Klansman, even though he did not go on to be nominated for
Mm.
an Oscar. So it is certainly possible. I am just not optimistic whatsoever about that film's chances, which is very sad. And we'll get to Danielle, the supporting actress, but I'm still like, I'm nervous enough about that. I think John David would be wonderful, and an ensemble nomination would be wonderful, but I think those are very, very unlikely. In the female actor in a leading role race, we have less matchup at Oscars. The 2020 nominations were the last ones that were the same, or that was 2009. So it's a lot less likely here. Some very intriguing nominees we've had in the past here include Jennifer Hudson for Respect, Amy Adams for Hillbilly Elegy, Lupita Nyong'o for Us, Judi Dench for Victoria and Abdul, Emily Blunt for The Girl on the Train, Hilary Swank for Conviction, way back when, Meg Ryan for When a Man Loves a Woman. I think the most surprising nominee ever probably is Sarah Silverman for I Smile Back.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Yeah. Wow, that was some trip down memory lane. Wow. Yeah, this is a very hard category. I my picks are Mikey Madison for Nora, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Demi Moore, The Substance. I think Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl. Did I get 4 or 5?
That's 5.
I
That's
think
5.
it's 5. Yep.
Yeah, see, and you know what? This is the one I'm gonna say. I mean, that's there's still more that could make that list, but this is the one that I could actually see Carla Sofia Gascon winning over Cynthia Erivo. I think
Mm.
this could be the big Amelia Perez win this season.
I think unfortunately, well, unfortunately or unfortunately, we'll see what happens. Um, I think this when Cynthia Erivo kind of entered the chat, and as crazy as people are about Wicked, and it is a fantastic performance that she gives, I think people just kind of are forgetting about Amelia Perez, sadly. I definitely think that Carla is going to be nominated. Cynthia, of course. I want to see Demi Moore for The Substance. I think, if anything, though, she might be the outlier. I don't know what's going to happen with Angelina Jolie. And it was so funny. We were talking about this before, but I'm like, at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's a shoe and best actress. She's got it. She's going to sweep. And then all these other performances came out, and I was like, oh, well, okay. People don't necessarily want a like traditional kind of performance. And so we're getting these more kind of avant garde performances from other people, and they're the ones that people are looking at. So it'll be interesting. I think as a surprise, June Squibb could get in there. I think that is a movie that has caught a lot of people's hearts. I think possibly on just kind of name recognition, I think Kate Winslet might have a chance to get in there for Lee. I know a lot of people aren't talking about Lee, but people still love Kate Winslet. So who knows? Oh, and I agree about Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl.
This category is too crowded. I think we agree. We should just take some, put them in Best Actor. I think that would be easier.
Yes.
But I do think Angelina Jolie is here. I don't think she's going anywhere. I think the movie is
Okay.
not going anywhere, like in terms of other things, even though its cinematography should be nominated. But I think she's in. I think Mikey Madison not being would be the biggest surprise of the season, just to not get nominated.
Mm,
Carlos Sofia Gascon, I am predicting. I am not predicting Cynthia Erivo.
really?
I believe this will be an interesting stumbling block for both Wicked and The Substance that will not reflect their Oscar chances. But I do
Mm,
not know that they will be embraced here. I'm probably I will just say that they'll probably both be
yeah.
nominated and win everything. But I had Nicole Kidman in, which I thought was a reach pick, but apparently, given that you both do, it's not. But I also have Amy Adams in for Night Bitch, which is not a performance I think will translate to the Oscars. I also don't think
Yeah.
Nicole will, but I think this category, because the fact that we didn't even talk about Pamela Anderson, like this category is too crowded. And Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here, who I don't think would show up here, but probably would at the Oscars. Like there are too many. Somebody is going to get very, very seriously snubbed. I don't think it's going to be Mikey, and I don't think it's going to be Angelina. And so maybe it will be Angelina, maybe, but I'm very uncertain about this category, but willing to take that gamble on these things because I don't know. I'm just not sure SAG is as enthusiastic about Cynthia Erivo as the like other awards bodies, but I might be wrong. That brings us to a category best male actor in supporting role, which generally has like 7 contenders across the board, and we just have to figure out how they're going to get nominated, get narrowed down. But in terms of the last Oscar matchup was way back in 2014, so it's a while to go for that one. Past nominees. Okay, ready? This is another fun list. Jared Leto for House of Gucci, Jamie Foxx for Just Mercy, Steve Carell for Battle of the Sexes, Hugh Grant for Florence Foster Jenkins, Don Cheadle, in addition to Matt Dillon, for Crash, Chris Cooper for both Seabiscuit and American Beauty, which one translated to Oscar win, the other wasn't even nominated. Hayden Christensen for Life as a House, both Hank Azaria and Nathan Lane for The Birdcage, and Kevin Bacon for Murder in the First. So that helps us a great deal in knowing what to expect this year.
I love it. Okay, so top of my list, I have Kieran Culkin all day, every day, a real pain. I think he's a shoo-in. He's fantastic. We have Denzel for Gladiator 2. He's having a great time promoting and people are loving it. So I think even people who may not have seen it will still vote for him. I honestly believe that. Guy Pearce. I want Guy in there. And oh, I wish this is also a category where it's not overly stacked with a ton of people, but the people they do have are so good that you just like give everyone an award. It was great. Clarence Malkin. I think that it would be fantastic if he were nominated. He did such a fantastic job. Now, we talked about The Apprentice before. I think, if anything, this is the category to watch him for Jeremy Strong. I think that he was definitely the more interesting, for me at least, character in that film was watching him as Roy Cohn. So, also, we talk about these big ensemble movies, so it'll be interesting to see how they pull those out, because we have Conclave, which is a cavalcade of best, supporting actor picks. But then there's also Juror Number 2. We have September 5. It's just these things where there's so many different people that they could pick from. So yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting race. But I'm Kieran, Denzel, Guy, Clarence, and who was the guy's name? Is it Yura Borisov that plays the security guy, right? Not the husband, but the mate. Yes, I like him, and I think that could be a very interesting pick. But my 5th actually officially will go to Jeremy Strong.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I think Stanley Tucci is going to get some love for Conclave on this. Peter Sarsgaard also for September 5.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the movie that I feel like nobody's talking about, but I still hear like it just was so overlooked, was The Fire Inside. So I feel
Brian, yeah,
Brian Tyree Henry definitely could get a nod for this. It's strong in your pick, Stacey. Like I feel like, yeah, down the line, I think oh yeah, Kieran, Denzel, Guy, Clarence, and then I feel like that 5th spot is Stanley, Peter, or Jeremy. I know that doesn't narrow it down. I'm like, give me just all 15 performances.
Give him tiny little trophies, little side trophies, like
Yeah.
little keychain.
Well, as I mentioned, there are 7 performances that seem to mostly be in contention. We've talked about 6 of them so far in this category.
Mm-hmm.
Kieran, Guy, Denzel, Clarence, who did not get nominated for a Golden Globe, and so that's not like a death knell. It's just let's sound the alarm. Yura Borisov, Jeremy Strong, and Edward Norton, who you mentioned before, Stacey, for
Yeah.
A Complete Unknown. So I am tempted to obey statistics more than I should. Jeremy Strong was not nominated last year for Succession when three of his castmates were. That's not enough of a reason to say it, but he also is someone who is famously intense about the way he does stuff. It's possible other actors don't like that as much as they like it with, say, Daniel Day-Lewis. Um, and I also, given that some things occupy a weird space in my brain, Edward Norton won a Golden Globe in 1996 for Primal Fear, and then wasn't even nominated for a SAG Award that year. He's actually only ever been nominated for an individual SAG Award once for Birdman. And so I don't know if A
Wow.
Complete Unknown is like I think he's great in the film. I just don't know what's happening with that. And so I'm tempted to put Clarence and Yura Borisov in there and leave Jeremy Strong um, and Edward Norton out. But I also think that given the list of wild past inclusions, it is possible we could get something really unexpected here. And I don't even know who that would be. I think Brian Tyree Henry is unlikely because I know he got an Oscar nomination for Causeway, but he didn't get anything before that. So I feel like it's the same thing, similar to how Edward Norton was nominated for American History X at the Oscars, but no precursors. So I don't know. Never sure exactly what that means, and statistics are just waiting to be broken. So it doesn't necessarily mean something. I just like to always dig back into that.
Stanley's the wild card. At Stanley's the wild
He
card.
shouldn't be a wild card, but the fact that he hasn't gotten anything previously is sort of unusual. That said, he would not be an unexpected choice. Just a question of whether but you've mentioned before, Stacey, in our conversation that there's just too many people in that film who you can look at, and I think it's the two people that people don't know, the actors whose names they don't know, who are actually better than the people they do know, and so that's a difficult part to be able to play. The female actor in a supporting role matched up in the Oscars 2022 and before that in 2016. Some curious past nominees include Penelope Cruz for Ferrari, Cate Blanchett for Nightmare Alley, Emily Blunt, who won for A Quiet Place and wasn't even nominated for an Oscar, Naomi Watts for St. Vincent, Michelle Pfeiffer for White Oleander, Cate Blanchett, again, for Bandits, Stockard Channing for Smoke, and in the first year of these awards, Jamie Lee Curtis for True Lies.
Wow.
I can see that.
I'm curious to hear who you have, Sari, in the running for this one.
Okay, so I think we're gonna see the usual suspects here pop up. Selena and Zoe, and Ariana, I feel like are kind of shoo-ins for the nomination. I feel like Isabella Rossellini for Conclave and Danielle Deadweiler for The Piano Lesson. Will Joan show up for Dee Dee? Will Monica show up for A Complete Unknown? It's possible. Margaret Qualley for The Substance. It's I feel like between Wicked and Amelia, I mean the winner is up for grabs, but I feel like as far as nominations are concerned, they are going to take up a good portion of this top five. So you're really just you're again working with just so many phenomenal actors with an extensive body of work. It's hard. This is really hard to narrow down for film.
We've had a female heavy season, which is actually like very exciting, but of course then it creates these kind of crossroads where you have Amelia Perez, where originally they didn't know how to separate them at all. We're like, who's going to be lead, who's going to be supporting, etc. I don't know that Selena is going to get a lot of love. I think that this is going to be Zoe's year because her work in this, but also her work in Lioness. And I think that has put her on like more people's radars who are watching. And so that it just might be more of a recognition thing. I think Ariana's kind of a shoo-in. I'm hoping for Isabella and Danielle. We'll see if they make it. I would like to see Margaret Qualley. I think that could be very interesting. She is very talented, but the good thing is that she's young. So she has a lot of really good performances yet to come. And that kind of leads way for a Monica Barbara or for a Joan Chen, which could also be interesting. There's a movie called His Three Daughters, and they're kind of pushing Natasha Lyonne, but I almost feel like Carrie Coon or Elizabeth should have got nominated for that instead. So again, who do you put in there? Who do you put in as a supporting? Who do you put in as the lead? But one name that will be interesting to see if it comes up is Saoirse Ronan, who had two movies that were deeply, deeply marketed, and I don't know anyone that's seen either of them between the Outrun and Blitz. I do kind of want to see Blitz, but it's like, I don't know. There's something about Saoirse just didn't catch on this season, and I'm not exactly sure why, but
It's also crazy because Blitz is directed by the director of 12 Years a Slave, a film that did quite well with awards back in the day.
yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting you bring up History Daughter because I remember seeing an FYC ad for Netflix where they put Natasha in lead, and then she's gotten all these supporting nominations. So it's like no one even knows what's happening there. So it would be easier if this was like the TV awards where there was only one category, by gender. In this category, I do think even if my Wicked not doing so well thing pays off, pays off, pans out. Ariana is safe, Zoe is safe. Selena, I'm iffy on, but I think she's going to get in, whereas Margaret Qualley will miss out and then get nominated for an Oscar. It's worth pointing out that Regina King, who won the Golden Globe and the Oscar for If Beale Street Could Talk, and also has 4 Emmy wins, has never been nominated for an individual SAG award. She was snubbed for If Beale Street Could Talk and still won. So this is like in terms of the
Jerry
trajectory,
Maguire?
it's not. It's pretty crazy. Ensemble stuff, there's some crazy snubs and some other things we can talk about, and we will. But I do think Felicity Jones from The Brutalist has been doing pretty well in this, and so I think she is in. I don't know about Isabella Rossellini, and I think Danielle Deadweiler I'm very cautiously keeping in because I am nervous. She did get nominated for Till here before getting snubbed for the Oscars. But now, unfortunately, her movie's in a similar position where it's just her alone and nothing else. I think it's possible Malcolm Washington could get a Directors Guild America First Time Director nomination, but like, I don't know how much that helps. But if you've seen The Piano Lesson, like, she is great. I'm nervous about it. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like if she misses here, that's sort of it because she's needed something before this. Whereas someone like Margaret Qualley or even someone like Monica Barbaro or Joan Chen like could come back with that there. I feel like she is in the industry enough that she should get in here. And if she doesn't, that's a big red flag.
And I want to make a note. So Felicity Jones of it all, I was wondering why her name wasn't in more conversations. And I had a lot of people say that they left or they stopped watching after the intermission or before the intermission. And of course, the bulk of her performance is that second half. That second half really is all about her. So I'm really hoping that people revisit that second half and then kind of get her name back in it. But I don't know if it's going to happen in time.
I am surprised to hear that because I feel like that really is going to be a big juggernaut of the award season and it's going to perform. Even if it doesn't win a lot of stuff, it's going to perform very well all over the place. And so I do think people really love it. And a lot of people I know have gone back to see it again and because they weren't as sure about second half and then loved it even more. And so I feel like her performance therefore would only improve after seeing it again. To close us out, we have the most chaotic category of them all, where I have a whole giant list of films that were not nominated, which were quite surprising, but also, of course, some interesting ones. Interestingly, even with 5 to 10 nominees in Best Picture, only twice since that started in 2009 have all the SAG picks actually been nominated for Best Picture, which is pretty crazy to have that. That was in 2009 and 2014. Otherwise, every time there's always been something. So, also, the only time any foreign language film was ever nominated here, Life is Beautiful and Parasite. That's it. So Emilia Perez, just one thing to think about. That said, Emilia Perez, I think, as we keep talking about this, is actually doing a lot better than everyone seems to say, because each group seems to like it. And just because there are some people online who aren't so into it, I don't know that represents voting members of guilds and groups. The interesting choices that I flagged for previous years, let's start with those, and then we'll go into the startling snubs. We have The Color Purple, Babylon, House of Gucci, Da 5 Bloods, Bombshell, Crazy Rich Asians, Mudbound, Captain Fantastic, Beasts of No Nation, Straight Outta Compton, Trumbo, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, Bridesmaids, Hairspray, Bobby, Hustle and Flow, The Station Agent, Waking Ned, How to Make an American Quilt, and Get Shorty. But now on to the not nominated. These are films that, in various ways, you would have thought might be the frontrunners. The Holdovers, Poor Things, The Power of the Dog, The Father, Mank, Little Women, Marriage Story, Best Picture winner, Green Book, The Favorite, Vice, Best Picture winner, The Shape of Water, Call Me by Your Name, Up in the Air, Atonement, Juno, Michael Clayton, Gangs of New York, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, although that could be the foreign language bias we're talking about, As Good as It Gets, Fargo, and a film you mentioned before, Jerry Maguire, all
That's
not
wild.
nominated. So there are only 5 slots. Stacey, what do you have?
Ugh. Wicked, of course. I did put Amelia Perez. I said Saturday Night. I think that that was actually a very good film that came out at the wrong year. I think that it is one of those that has great performances, but they're understated because the whole point of the film is chaos. So you don't have a lot of time to get into the nitty gritty, but what they do with that time is really well done. But it just keeps hitting every block for every other category. So I think ensemble is where, if anything, that's where we'll get something. Piano lesson and and Conclave.
Yeah, this also, I mean, Wicked and Amelia Perez, I think are for sure going to be nominated. Conclave, The Brutalist, and yeah, Saturday Night. And then it's hard. I agree with you. I think this is a hard year for Saturday Night.
Mhm.
It is a fantastic movie that should really have more recognition, but it's just being drowned out by all the competition. Um, I think the piano lesson also is up there on my list. It's hard, man. This is like you got 5 spots, and yeah, this is tough.
This is one I would definitely love to see go to Sing Sing because of the story behind it and who is impacted by it and all that. It's very inspiring and it's such a cool story, but I don't know that enough people understand that story or know that story yet. So we'll see.
I do not have Wicked. I do not have
Mm,
The Brutalist. The Brutalist feels like another one that,
probably not.
like some of the films I mentioned, like The Power of the Dog. Like, how is that not nominated? And The Power of the Dog even got individual nominations for everybody, but not that. So I have Conclave, and that's all I feel confident about. I have Amelia Perez, which, given what we're saying, I think could do pretty well. I have Sing Sing, but obviously it has some boundaries. I have Nickel Boys, which we didn't discuss in the other category because I feel like that's a film where like you don't necessarily like some of the people in it, but you could say like that's a great ensemble, and with it feels like exactly the kind of film to get an ensemble nomination with
Right.
no individuals. The same way at the Golden Globes, it just got best picture. Similar, September 5 could be a contender. That same way, I think Saturday Night needs this. If it doesn't get this, it's done. Like it missed out on
Yeah.
the Golden Globe nomination for best picture. It's not on the short list for makeup and hairstyling or score at the Oscars. Like it is not doing well, and like some could say it's the award for most cast. Even though I know that there are rules. Nathaniel Rogers from the Film Experience always does an interesting thing where he looks at who's actually nominated for ensemble, and it's pretty crazy because there are certain rules about having individual credits. And so I remember when Atlanta got nominated for Best Ensemble, Zazie Beetz wasn't nominated because she's not like doesn't have the right credit, which is insane because she's literally a member of the like it didn't yeah. But just to throw things in chaos, in addition to Conclave, Amelia Perez, Sing Sing, and Nickel Boys, I have His Three Daughters.
I would love to see that. I don't know that enough people I don't know that's on enough people's radars. Same with Nickel Boy. In fact, Nickel Boy is probably my top of the season. I love that movie and I've seen it multiple times and will watch it multiple more. But I don't think people got it. And it may have just been, I think that's a Ramel Ross thing too. He's just a little ahead of his time,
I
which,
think, I mean, he might get an Oscar. I think it's very possible. I think
yeah,
not even the ensemble. It's a great way of saying like something is good about this movie. We don't know what it is, but like here's
right.
some, so that could be interesting.
No, listen, I think it depends on who you're asking. This is, I think Nickel Boys is going to do better later in the season, whereas I think The Brutalist,
Mm,
you're talking to actors. And I think that this is like the one award show that The Brutalist could actually see the love, where I feel like as we move on, it just is different. You've got actors, you've got critics.
I think it's a power of the dog situation. It's like, yeah, the actors are all great. How are we not going to nominate it for ensemble? We're just not. And I don't know. Because also, I mean, there are a lot of other supporting people, but the same thing. Like, think of someone like Joel Alwyn, who's from The Favorite. You know, he wasn't not like that wasn't nominated here. Like certain like easy opportunities for a huge ensemble. But I also I follow Carrie Coon on X, and she like every night is posting about like the movie she's going to at like Academy screenings, and I'm like, are people doing the same things like with her movie? Are they going to see His Three Daughters and seeing the other things? And like, how are they getting to things so much later than the rest of us might have?
One thing I will say about The Brutalist is I think a lot of people, specifically because of length and because of the style and time period, a lot of people are going to compare it to Oppenheimer. I think when people think about something as epic and as big, we're going to be thinking about Babylon, we're going to be thinking about Oppenheimer. And so, but it is a lot more understated than honestly both of those. And I wondering how it's going to fare, especially in terms of Adrian Brody, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, best actor. But I'm like, but I don't know that he was the best performance in that film, you know? And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with some of these, especially with last year's wins being so fresh in mind. I'm wondering if any of those are going to affect this year.
We also forgot to mention A Complete Unknown, which is a strong
Yeah,
possibility because, you know, another like
true.
most casts, you know, one where there's just so many people in it and it's hard not to be able to recognize that. So I think there's a lot to ponder here. I have no idea what's going to happen. I am excited, I am nervous, and I think it's going to be very interesting. So thank you everyone as always for joining us today. I'm Abe Friedtanzer.
I'm Stacey Yvonne.
I'm Sari Cohen.
We'll see you next time.